Welcome to the ladies meeting, and we are going to do a recap of Judy's talk that she did at the ladies meeting on LinkedIn. It was incredibly informative, and I've been on LinkedIn for ages, but she had some great new tips that I hadn't heard before. Judy Reiman is a awesome business community builder. She is an independent Legal Shield representative and a meetup organizer for the Kitsilano business leaders and an ambassador with Greater Vancouver Board of Trade. She helps individuals, families, and business owners know their legal rights and resolve potential legal issues, such as getting their will completed. Something I still need to do. We will talk at some point.
We will, absolutely.
Before they balloon into major headaches or expenses. Judy's going to talk about her initial resistance to social media and how she now enthusiastically uses LinkedIn and Facebook for business networking. And she'll also share how to detect and filter out scammers. Welcome, Judy.
Thank you so much, Anyssa, for inviting me on this. Oh, where can I begin? Way back when Kitsilano Business Leaders Meetup first started, people were sending me many invites to connect on LinkedIn, and they just ended up piling up there. And number one, I didn't really know much about it, didn't know what to do with it. I just had an account to kind of sate my curiosity as to what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had we were going to have a special speaker coming in to speak to our Solano business leaders in regards to social media. And that's when I kind of bit the bullet and said, well, I might as well really hop onto this and see what it truly is all about. And I have not looked back since. I will go over some of the major advantages that I have experienced and also touch a bit on problems or some of the obstacles that other people right now are not on LinkedIn or do it just a little bit, kind of a toe time, but that's not really helping to raise their brand or their connection circle. How does that sound?
That sounds great. I think a lot of people miss out on how LinkedIn can really help people increase their influence and show other people that they meet that they are leaders in their field. I've given out contracts based on someone's million-dollar contracts, in fact, based on someone not having a LinkedIn profile. So I think that taking time to set it up properly and to respond to people if you're looking to grow your business and increase your influence, it's a really key platform for that.
When people are first starting out, it's a good idea to connect with other business people that they are familiar with. And then as they move along, a good way of getting influential people in your connection is if you're attending networking events. For example, if you're coming to a Kitsilano Business Leaders Meetup, you see who the speaker is. Go on to LinkedIn, check out the person's profile, and send an invite with a personal note saying, I'm going to be attending your presentation. I am really looking forward to it, or something along that line. And I haven't had any speaker refuse to connect with me when I use that kind of approach.
I think you make a really good point, especially if any sort of worry about showing up at a group or a meetup. It's a great way to always have a warm lead. Like, you can walk into a room and you can see if they've written any articles, you can see what business they're in, and you've already got a conversation and something to talk about. So it's a great way to always have a warm conversation with someone instead of a cold call when you meet them for the first time at a meetup.
Yes. And a really important thing is doing up your profile. I have been experimenting with, first of all, I'm taking on my profile and it says, Judy, there's a very important piece of real estate right underneath.
Mm-hmm.
That is where people frequently put, they're a financial planner or a legal shield associate or they're a business coach. What I've been using it for, and I've been kind of experimenting. I think that I've got it the way I really like it now.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I've been experimenting with it is because when you make a comment on LinkedIn or do a like or such, then a photo, your headshot is going to show up along with your name.
Mm-hmm.
And it also includes that first line right underneath or beside your name. Now I just changed it again. In one way, I think it's kind of that whenever people see me liking or posting something, that every now and then, it's not reading the same thing over and over. Right now, I've got access to legal advice, depend on access to any.
Mm-hmm.
Justice for all, Blue Shield. So that is what people are going to see when or make a post. What do you have, Anyssa?
I actually have that I'm the founder of the ladies meeting and that I do social media and a few other things. And I really agree with you. It's really important that you show people what you do versus I see people put in the title owner or president, but nobody really cares what your title is. They care what you do. And how can
It's not striking. Yes, it's just simply stating a fact.
Mm-hmm. But if you just put president or owner, it really doesn't do anything to create a warm connection versus, oh, Judy does this. Oh, that's cool. Now we've got something to talk about or something that might tweak something or a conversation.
While we're on my profile here, I'm going to talk about how you can find out if a headshot has been hijacked.
I love this trick. This was amazing. I'd never heard this before.
I'm looking at my headshot. You can look at your headshot. When I click on it, it enlarges it a bit so that you can do edit there on my. But when you click somebody else's headshot, you will see an enlarged view. You're going to right click on it, and then on the drop box, click Search Google for image. Then it's going to show you where that image also appears on any websites across the internet.
Very cool.
That is how I found that one person who was sending me a LinkedIn invite and who had been sending an invite to a lot of the people in my connection circle.
Mm-hmm.
The photo looked very, very, she was beautiful. She had a vibrant, engaging look about her. And that's how I found out that I could Google that headshot and see what else or where else photo was linked to. And lo and behold, I found out that wonder it looked so familiar was actually scammed. It was the headshot of a government minister in England.
Wow.
And I had that in the news. And so when I Googled, I could see that that belonged to all of these various news articles pertaining to that minister.
Oh, very
How
interesting.
cool is that?
That's awesome. I wish I know there was a point where I was getting connection requests from people that worked at the UN, and that was another one that kind of, I was like, it doesn't make sense. I don't know anybody, and I don't know anyone who works as a scientist at the UN. And so if it just sounds wrong, then either investigate or walk on. Or if they don't have a photo, I also just don't connect with people generally.
Depending on the type of business that you're in, whether it's local, whether it's global, you're going to have a different attitude, a different technique in trying to determine if any LinkedIn invite is a phony LinkedIn profile or whether they're just scamming.
Mm-hmm. There are some professions where they do have a profile, but they can't show their photo. Like I had a client who was a forensic accountant, so she couldn't put her photo in anything, but it's very rare, pretty much.
Because of the professional associations,
Mm-hmm.
some of them are required to really put minimal information down.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one way that look in viewing whether it's a legit person and whether there is truly an advantage for us to be connected. Sometimes it may not be apparent just right now. Is there potential for some sort of networking or possible client basis? And what I look at is see if they're active on LinkedIn, whether they've done any posts, whether they like, whether they engage. And I also take a look at their background. If they have maybe one or two experience labels, and all they have basically there is a name and basically their name is the company name and their position.
Mm-hmm.
I keep scrolling down, and it's always good to know and keep scrolling down and see what else they're involved with, who given them endorsements, etc. Remember, LinkedIn is a social platform.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to engage with the people. There's no sense in collecting 2,000 names if you never really engage with each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's like being in Vancouver walking down the street. Sure, there's all of these people in Vancouver, but if you don't know any of them and can't talk to them, what is the sense?
Yeah, exactly.
Versus in your neighborhood, let's say in my neighborhood, if I can lean over the fence and talk to my neighbor, exchange information about my garden, and talk about the grass. Oh gosh, we mowed the grass again. Oh, the flowers are so beautiful. That way you're really engaging with your neighbors. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing with being on media.
And I know in Vancouver, for example, using one of the things LinkedIn does very well is connects universities. So if you've all gone to the same university, you might have mutual contacts, you might have mutual leads. A story I had once with someone I used to train for LinkedIn. He brought me in to train for LinkedIn. Is he didn't understand? He's like, well, why would I connect with people from university? Because he didn't have any time left to make more sales, but he had sales guys with extra time. And I said, well, if you have contacts there, well, why don't you make an introduction to your salespeople, to these people who are from your alma mater? And he was like, oh, I hadn't thought of that. Or he had thousands of connections from all the trade shows he's gone to. He didn't have time to follow up with them, but then he can make the introduction to his sales team because someone's already showed interest in his product and he hadn't taken time to follow up. But through LinkedIn, he can connect the two, his sales team and that, because they already have something in common. They already had a common industry. Just they weren't in the common town necessarily, but there was already a connection there. So it gives you a chance to have a warm introduction versus a cold introduction. So why wouldn't you do it?
Some of them, especially if they're professionals in healthcare, etc., or if they're in senior management, a good way of using LinkedIn is that they can really connect with other research people that are in their field, in their industry. I know that I'm connected with some very senior people right across the world in regards to cybersecurity. And that's why I don't have an open list of my connections unless you also know that particular person that I know. You will know name. I have so many diverse connections. Some are in very high level Secret Service, etc., as well as my KITS members, my Vancouver Board of Trade members, etc. And that's why I'm not up to possible spamming or identity theft with phony profiles.
Perfect.
And one thing I'd like to point out is that when you're on somebody's profile, if you move over, now I'm using my desktop. I don't know what it looks like on a smartphone. On a regular computer, if you move over to the right of the headshot, you can see what email or possible website, phone number that is listed with this particular person. And that is really cool, being able to see their email. Now, if you want to keep your email private, there are all sorts of tools on LinkedIn so that you can cross off various aspects about your personal data that you do not want to show publicly.
Right. And I think you can choose what levels you want depending on the level of connection that you have, whether you're first level, second level, or third level as well. I noticed that as a new option. I'm just on my smartphone looking at Anita Huberman. She's CEO of the Surrey Board of Trade. And no, I don't think you see as much information as you do as when you're on your desktop. So I think that's a really good point.
So you can't see contact and personal info?
No. I'm just scrolling down to see if it, I mean, obviously I use her as an example because she's a very public figure. Oh, no, actually, you know what? If you scroll down, so if you scroll down past activities, highlights, experience, it's way down. They don't make it easy. Featured skills, there actually is contacts. So you can see her profile.
And personal info.
Yeah, her website, which is surreyboardoftrade.com, and she's got the Surrey Board of Trade phone number on there as well. So that's a good example. And then you can see what her interests are, and people who've viewed her profile also viewed these other people. So you do have a lot of the same information on a smartphone as you do.
There's her home phone number too.
Well, I think that's actually the Surrey Board of Trade.
Got her home phone number there.
It's probably her company cell if it's not the office.
That is probably very true.
But she's a very public person.
Phone her at home.
She's not hard to get a hold of.
Yes. And there's her Twitter, there's her email. And that is what is so great when I connect with people, especially people that have potential, who are article writers and people with very special expertise that I might want to invite to be a speaker at our kids meetup. Being connected, I can see information that they might want to give me, at which frequently their email is there. And that's a good way of being able to make that initial warm connection and then being able to email that person as well.
Exactly. And why would you want to be hard to get a hold of if you're
And when I look at people, I really like going on to their website to see exactly what is the nature of their business. So I can make some friendly comments about what I like about it, or some striking information. And that way the person is something more or less intimate you can talk with them about. Have you done that?
Yeah, quite often, especially I'll do that with clients. I'll look up to see where they're at and ask them where they want to get to with their marketing and branding. So quite often I'll go and check out what they already have and kind of fill them in on where they need to get to build their influence. So I do that quite often. I'll go through, but I'll look through all of their social media profiles and look at how they could often, I know you might talk about this a little bit later, but in their LinkedIn profile, they don't use up the entire amount that they could use to fill in their biography. I think you have 2,000 words. I don't know if that's been updated, the length, but through all of that space, if you're not using it to describe who you are and what you do and how you can make a connection with other people, it's wasted space. So I also like to see that it's congruent with what they do on their website as well. So are they showing the same face across all platforms? Because otherwise it's really confusing to people, and I might move on to someone else if I find someone that's not, if they've been in 3 different businesses in 4 months, I might look at something different.
Very true, very true.
So what's next on our list?
I told a story. I'm sorry?
What's next on our list?
I told this, let's go back to the phony
profile
headshot. I was telling the ladies at the ladies meetup in regards to being able to use logic whether somebody is a legitimate profile. Of course, you can't catch them all because some of them are very sneaky. They've got very comprehensive ones. There's some interesting stories about how you can do up some really comprehensive ones and be able to scam people within the industry, within the cybersecurity industry. Frequently, when these scammers post phony profiles, they're not very good at it. And one that really pops up in my memory is it was a bank manager in New York who sent an invite and was sending invites to all of the people in Vancouver. I could see that that a lot of my local connections were part of his connections now. And I'm scratching my head and I'm wondering, why does a bank manager, some obscure bank in New York, want to connect with? And I just watched. I saw his connections explode. They were just a few in the beginning, and then rapidly all of these people were leaping on and connecting with him. They were accepting his invites. And within a week or so, they had 500 connections. And then shortly after, I think LinkedIn either got notice or got blocked, that he was blocked or whatever, his profile disappeared.
Oh, very interesting. Well,
So
and
if
that's
there's enough
something.
people, there's enough people that peg the profile as LinkedIn
Mhm.
will just
Interesting. Well, and
disbar them.
I've seen that on Facebook a few times, and I noticed it happen with some of. I noticed it was a few women, all of the same age group on Facebook, that we would have one mutual friend, and he was generally in his 60s or 70s, and I would send a little note out saying, "Do you guys actually know this guy? Because I think this is just someone who's targeted us." And knowing that some of them weren't quite as socially savvy, that I didn't want to. I wanted to let them know that he wasn't my friend, and because I'm out there and I do meet a lot of people, and at the time I was a paid networker. So just kind of also protecting those people that are in your network, and if they believe that you are connected with this person either professionally or as a friend, it builds trust. And those scammers know that if they could get 3 people, like for example, if you had myself, Matt, yourself, and say a couple other people as friends on Facebook or connected on LinkedIn, they'll know that those are going to have influence on other people's decisions to connect.
That's a really good point that you mentioned. Remember, your reputation, people are looking at you, believing that if so and so is connected with you, then I should be connected with you as well.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be in the position of inviting, I think sort of like inviting everybody to your party, regardless of whether you know them or not, and exposing your friends to possible scammers or possible burglars who may want to get to know you and find out where you live, etc.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's a really good point.
Now, do you have any other points in regards to LinkedIn? And then maybe we could move over to Facebook. Anything else you want me to touch on about LinkedIn?
The one thing would recommend too is making sure that when you do get on LinkedIn, one of the first things you do is make sure you take your public domain address. It's super easy to do. We actually have a course that we'll have online on our foundation course that'll show you the images how to do that. But taking your name instead of leaving the numbers that LinkedIn gives you when you initially sign up, and you can change your public domain name on LinkedIn super easily, but then it's yours and nobody else can use your name. I had a client once, his name was, he had a typical first name and a number for a last name. So very unusual. He was an author and he's like, there's no one else with my name. And I'm like, actually someone else had taken his LinkedIn profile name. So
Interesting.
and find something that identifies, because like, for example, John Smith, it's going to be hard to find a name that's going to work. So for example, once in a while, if you have a very common name, I recommend, and you work in Vancouver, put YVR or something like that, or a middle initial, something that defines you and sets you apart so people can recognize who you are on LinkedIn, and just not have your number at the end of your domain. And you'll find that when you go to your profile, just have numbers at the end. And if anyone has questions about that, they can feel free to email me or check our foundations course in the next week.
I would be interested in knowing about it right now, if you don't mind.
You just go to the right. You have to do it on a desktop, I believe, and it's easier to. And you just go to the right of your profile, and it'll just say change your domain name, basically, and it'll let you pick out a name so that you are using it. Plus it also makes, because one of the number one ways for someone to find you, so say I've met you at a networking group, I can just if you put in Anyssa Carruthers, your first thing that's going to come up is my LinkedIn profile, if it's filled out properly. If I've just left the domain name as just the numbers that LinkedIn initially gives you, they just throw like 7-3 whatever, and they give that to you as your domain, but it's up to you to go in and choose one that works for you. And some people go in and put their company name. It's really important to go use your real name when you are setting up your personal LinkedIn profile, and then use a business, just like Facebook, use a business page for LinkedIn to set up your business, because it's very separate. Because if you go to change your business or you need to do anything with your business, you now have two places: one, your business place, and also your LinkedIn profile isn't just about your business. It's about your, like, I have Rotary, you might have Rotary group. And like you said, you're really interested in other people's other interests. You're going to put in what university you went to and maybe some past positions. So that's really about making a connection with the person as opposed to making a connection with the business. And we, in a socially driven world these days, that social connection is often more important than the business connection to start with, like to make that warm phone call and make that warm connection.
What I've got is Judy Reiman and then a series of numbers. So
Right. So what I'll show, what I'll
or
do is I will show you after we're finished the podcast. I will I'm
okay.
working on I'm actually going through Thinkific and redoing all my LinkedIn training as a course. Most of my training I've all done live for small business groups. So I'm actually going through and doing all my slides in Thinkific. So I'll have that available up on the Ladies Meeting podcast, ladiesmeeting.com shortly. So, and I'll help you out with yours for sure.
A suggestion in regards to the headshot is get a decent headshot for LinkedIn, and post all sorts of photos. Book, in fact, I do, but I have a professional photo for my headshot on LinkedIn. It is a professional social media platform. It's amazing how many people have obscure photos for their headshot on LinkedIn, or it is somebody up on a mountaintop, but you can't even see the headshot. You wouldn't be able to recognize the person.
Well, and that's, I think you make a really good point, is if I walk into a room, into a networking situation, the reason I have that headshot up there is so that people can make that personal connection as well. There are some, like I said before, some people that don't need to have or want to have their face up there. And some people are going to have ski gear on because that's their profession, but it should reflect what your profession is.
Definitely. And maybe working in a hospital, or if you're a policeman in crime services, then perhaps you don't want your headshot there. But if your purpose of being on LinkedIn is to be sociable, to widen your circle of influence across all different sectors, then you want to put your best face forward.
One of my favorites is having a shot with your, if you've got your company logo behind you, and maybe your company golf shirt, if that's what you wear to work every day. To me, that just shows I have a real office. I'm a real person. I've spent time on buying professional clothing for my job. So I love seeing stuff like that as well.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Shall we go over to Facebook now?
Absolutely. And I'm going to just bring up, I just actually got a business question from someone on Facebook, but their face on their Facebook page is a dog. Do I take that seriously? I don't know. So I think that's just something, just because we're still on the topic.
I don't know. It depends. It depends on whether a lot of people use it primarily for getting together, communicating with close friends, the relatives, their children, etc. And there they can recognize your dog, etc.
Okay.
But if you're there for business purposes, you want to be able to convey a warm, appealing headshot that people can recognize and can say, oh, yeah. Whenever it's up, it reinforces your connection with people.
Absolutely.
I just changed my headshot again.
I saw it. It's absolutely
I've put on,
stunning.
it's my sailing one. It's sailing.
Well, and what I like about the
But
photo
see
that
that,
you, sorry, just what I like about that photo that you posted is it really reflects who you are. And I think it's a really important. If your photo doesn't reflect who you are, then you may have challenges.
whenever I'm posting or liking something or making a comment, then my photo is going to show up. And that is why I'm spending time on Facebook, is to keep my name out there. To every now and then I'll mention Legal Shield, but not hammering people's head about my business, interspersing personal things about my garden, some of the problems that I have, keeping my fruit from being eaten up by rats, etc. These are things that, my friends and business acquaintances, they can really relate to that.
Absolutely.
And it's a good idea to have a headshot where you can really, by the time that it is shrunken down in apart from up in the far left there, you want to be able to actually recognize. I'll take a look at yours. Let's see what yours.
My profile shot on Facebook, I have it. I don't know what's up there right now. It might be my grandson.
Are you lying down? Oh, are you taking a suntan?
That's actually in my house with a photo of a painting that's in our house. And I don't know if you know, I don't know if you know Avi Arya. He's an international social media guy. He's on time, and so he sent me a picture that was very similar to this with sunglasses. So this is almost like a competition photo. I sent it back to him as a response. This was actually a photo response photo.
It looks very artistic.
Thank you. Well, I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts, so that's a win.
It gives the artistic look to it. And I love that. Oh, what is that thing called? The background photo? The cover photo.
The
cover photo. I love your cover photo.
Thank you. It's one of my favorite coffee shops that you'll see Christine standing there on the left-hand side. She's a local writer in Vancouver, and she's going to help me with my book when I write it. So that's one of our, it always reminds me of Harry Potter. I think it's called Station something or other. I can't think of the name of it right now. But
I do get that sense as well.
It's actually set up like a real
train station. It looks like it could actually sit at the bar.
I think you can, and it's just a wonderful spot to go.
Chairs, 3 stools.
Yeah. Well, and if for people that know me, I love coffee, so a good coffee shop is super important. And I'm actually about to replace that with a photo from the Solar Coaster Express lift from my time up on the mountain today. So you've caught that before it comes down.
One thing I don't like about Facebook is that, you can either make your Facebook private or you open it up to the public. Mm-hmm. If you want to engage with a lot of people, there's no sense in making it private. Mm-hmm. However, I don't like the idea that any Tom, Dick, Harry, Jane, etc., that I don't even know, may be able to see all of my mutual connections.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I know for me on mine, you can't friend me because I was a public networker for a long time. I actually used to have, like yourself, have two profiles when the kids were little. I don't have little kids at home anymore, so I don't
Right.
worry about it like I used to. And I was going to university at the time, so between like when I was in university and my kids were little, no one even knew where I lived. Like you wouldn't find out. Whereas now I'm pretty easy to track down. It's very different. So you really need to look at what your personal life is and how private it should be. One of the number one articles that was posted again this week is how many children's profiles have been stolen. And because people are posting when their kids are born, they now have you and your maiden name, all the information that you need to steal somebody's profile. People are posting about their kids,
Exactly.
which drives me a little
Exactly.
crazy. And I've actually taught courses on this and stuff, but nobody listens. It's really interesting.
It's really hard to get people to pay attention to that until it happens to them.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that I like about Facebook is that people can't make a comment unless they're connected to you, unless they're friends. However, they can copy your photo and use it for what it doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't have the same, they haven't locked it down like they have with Instagram. Instagram is a little bit harder to copy and paste, but with screen capture, with like on any sort of digital phone now, you can you can do what's called a screenshot and just copy anything anyway. So, but what we have to realize too is quite often it's just big data. It gets lost in the crowd.
When you were talking about births and babies and children, that's where when you have all of your children there, people can copy the photos.
Mm-hmm.
There was a case where somebody, I think she had Down syndrome, and they had this beautiful picture of the child just sharing amongst friends and such. And sometime later, somebody notified the mother that picture, without her knowledge or authorization, was posted in New York on a huge billboard promoting a Down syndrome association.
Wow.
And the mother was just horrified.
Mm-hmm. It's such a disregard for personal respect, like, especially in that case.
Mm-hmm.
What was the outcome of that? Do you know?
I didn't really remember. Oh, she contacted the agency, the advertising agency that put it up, and apparently they had bought it off of what do you call it?
Like a Shutterstock, like a stock photo site or something?
Yeah, some photo service. So somebody had taken her photo off of social media and sold it to illustrate particular marketing
Wow, that's
emphasis.
interesting. And you know, and there's people who don't mind. Like my daughter, she makes baby clothes, and she used her son as a model the whole time. They live in a small town, and everybody in that town knows who my grandson is. Like, like you walk through town, and I can say, "Hey, you know Hannah and Odin," and they'll be like, "Of course, they're at the market every Saturday." So but she's aware of what she's doing. It's a conscious thing. He's got his own hashtag. You know, so it's a matter of being conscious. If you are going to do that, being conscious of it. But then she also keeps a lot of stuff super private. But when it's for the business, she'll use him and him and his friends as models with full permission from the parents. and just really respecting who does want to be in and who doesn't want to be on social media. So, and we're really
It's
cautious.
weighing the pros and cons.
Yeah, we're
Well,
in
what do you
Toastmasters.
want out of your social media activity, and
Yeah.
what are you willing to give in order to get?
Yeah. And I know it, like, for example, at Toastmasters, we're really careful that we don't post any, like, I'll take a picture of the boardroom table with the names on it, but I won't post anybody's photo because we have guests and people that might not want to be seen as being at a meeting and things like that. So you have to really be careful about what you do and who you post.
On or at our Kitsilano Business Leaders Meetup, I tell people that we have a resident photographer is going to be taking photos.
Mm-hmm.
If anybody and doesn't want their photo there, they don't like them, make them look fat, look this way, they didn't like their hair, etc. No problem. Contact either myself and we'll take it off, lickety
Yep. Or
split.
I had someone
Yeah.
said, "You always catch us eating lunch." And so what I do is I actually include it, and I know it's like you bring up a really good point. I need to go back and because sometimes we have drop-ins at the ladies' meeting, but when you purchase a ticket, it's actually as part of the waiver that it's kind of like a little mention about social media and photos. But so I need to go back and just check that and make sure that when we do have drop-in guests that they have signed that waiver as well. So thank you for the reminder of that.
Sometimes people will object to an aspect of their figure or their appearance. That was great. One person, I pulled up a figure, a picnic that Mad Astafan had. So that's really going back. I think
I've
that
been to one
must
of
be going
those.
back about years.
I brought a
And
paddleboard
I
once.
think it was down at Kids Beach.
Yep, I brought my son. We paddled. It was
Yeah,
awesome.
and it was one of those throwbacks. So I posted the photo and of the group, and then uh, with two women together, and one of the women said, "Please take it off. My hair is terrible." And I thought her hair looked great, but okay, no problem.
Interesting. Or like we had some privacy issues too. Angela, who's congratulations, she's had her little baby Kingston. So she didn't want anyone to see her baby tummy for a while, and we all for private reasons and stuff. So until until last month, you didn't see any photos of her online where showed that Kingston was going to arrive, and he's got the cutest little smile. So
Oh, he's
congratulations
beautiful.
to her and Mike.
Oh, he's beautiful.
So really respecting people's privacy around physical appearance and family matters can be really important as well. I work with BC Transit. We have drivers. They all have signed a waiver to have their photos taken, but there's some people that have custody issues and things like that. So you do need to watch what you post in regards to that as well. So we're really careful about that.
There's a lot of issues in regards to that nature, and I know there are women that have domestic violence issues, etc., and that they want to be identified in photos at all.
And I think,
Thoroughly
if you have that
understand and
little,
respect that.
if you have that little feeling in your gut, then you probably should listen to it. That's what I find is your gut literally will tell you whether or not you should post something. And if in doubt, you feel that little gut feeling, just don't do it. Just pass. Do something else.
Recently, there's been quite a series of posts about a widowed soul, a lot of older men from the United States and around the world. They don't have any posts apart from their headshot of either they're in uniform, or they have a headshot with a child, or they have a headshot of them in beautiful surroundings, and there's nothing else. What I caution people to do is remember this is a social platform, people, and understanding where people's different interests and such. But if the other person isn't posting anything, or if they're not posting anything that you would want to interact with, then don't feel obligated to accept them. If people look, especially the men, and they do that on Facebook with the different posts, someone who's saying, yes, yes, that's exactly what is happening to us. And they're getting probably the same invites from guys who are phony profiles, or they're not looking to really socialize with you in a legitimate way.
No, not at all. So I totally agree with you. And I think if Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter are just not an appropriate place to to be dating. But I don't know if you saw in the news this week, Facebook is going to be dipping into the online dating pool. They're going to be competing with Plenty of Fish and things like that. So I can't say I totally agree with that, but Facebook has decided to invest in online dating, so that'll be interesting.
That really is going to be interesting, because so many people who are looking to connect with the opposite sex and not in a real way, they're already gravitating to Facebook. And now with that dating, you're compartmentalizing it so that apparently it won't interfere with your friends or such. I don't know how that's going to work.
All I know is when Facebook first came out, I remember everybody hooked up with their old high school sweethearts, and I remember literally parents just disappearing from families because they fell in love and went across the country to see their old. I don't know if you remember when this happened, when Facebook first came up. I saw kids that lost their moms and their dads because of Facebook. So
I've heard of that.
yeah, it was really sad. I think people are a little bit more social savvy now. We used to just have Lava Life and things like that. You had to actually talk to someone on the phone. But yeah, I think because people feel this initial emotion connection to their childhood, when they were a teenager, it brings up all these emotions that, doesn't often last. But anyway, we'll get off that topic. We'll leave that for the psychologist.
So one thing that a lot of people don't know is when you click on the recent message requests, the messaging, that there is the message requests. So every now and then you could take a look at that to see if somebody legitimate is sending you a message. I did find the odd one. For some reason, they wanted to connect, and it did come through as a regular message. It ended up in this hidden message section.
Yeah, and what I also do, just like when someone sends me private messages, I do, just like you mentioned before, go and check if they have any recent posts or anything. But I think more and more people are using Facebook Messenger, just like with Twitter. There's a lot of people that use the platform, but they as viewers or for messaging, but they're not actually active on it. So Facebook Messenger is its own platform, but we often forget that. And I think people are using it to communicate more and more because of the video features and Facebook Live and things like that. And Instagram, they're pulling that into, you'll be able to have 3 and 4 people onto a video. and they have, their messaging features as well. So realizing that they are separate from Facebook is probably really important. But also, just because we're talking about messaging, we all know that when we've had a chat with someone in Facebook and then all of a sudden we get ads for, might be talking about a car, and all of a sudden we're getting car insurance ads. So realize that it's not a place to have private conversations either, because you're going to get marketed too.
Not only that, I recently read that everything is recorded.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't know what they're going to be doing with all of that.
Well, and I think they're scanning for words and things like that they can market to, or in the United States, they've got, the Big Brother system. Hopefully our CSIS isn't quite as, who knows? They're looking for words, they're looking for terrorists, but they're also looking to market to you. So just be aware that I always tell people this. I'd rather have people pick up the phone and talk to me. I don't know how that works with Facebook Messenger when it's a video, if they're recording that as well, who knows?
All that information is being collected. And I guess it's basically up in the cloud that can be accessed by people who know how to access it.
Yeah, they literally have server farms in Sweden and in cold countries, because it's cheaper for them to keep them cold, I guess, and keep them running.
Yes.
And they're just storing this information. So yeah, it's interesting. So do you have a few more tips on Facebook before we finish off? That you could only do 15 to 20 minutes and we're almost at a full hour.
I'm all done.
What else have you got there?
In regards to Facebook,
mm-hmm.
But not much except follow me.
Excellent. And do you want to give a little plug for your upcoming Catalano business meeting?
Our Catalano Business Leaders Meetup is for camaraderie, networking, and learning from some very influential speakers. Our next one is this Thursday morning. We're a morning meetup, 7:45 in the morning. It's a great way once a month to kickstart the day. And I've got Adam Wicks coming in to talk about success tips from an award-winning founder.
And he won a Business BC award?
Oh, he's won numerous awards for himself and for his company. He has, let's see, he has won the Small Business BC Company Award for 20. He's won the Best of the City 2017 Teen People's Choice Award, Best of House, that's HOUZ, 2017. And 2016, he won the BC Businesses Top 30 Under 30. And I think that he's only about 29 or 30 or so right now.
That sounds about right. And who is your always much talked about muffin sponsor?
Well, who is going to be there this month?
Mm-hmm.
That one is, it is a print company. And would you believe, I can't quite remember his name. His name is on the tip of my tongue.
No problem.
He's going to wag his finger at me.
Probably. That's okay.
He's going to make a very special offer. So be sure to come to our Kits Meetup and hear his special 5-minute education on headshots and printing and business cards. And he's going to make a very special offer.
Oh, excellent. Well, good to know. Well, thank you, Judy. I'm really glad that you took time to come back with us and record this, because I just found it so informative, especially that little trick about Googling photos. I had no idea. So I think it's great to keep people up to date on these things. So if you ever want to come back again and record a next level, if you find out any more tips and tricks, let us know. If not, you can meet Judy and I both at the ladies meeting at the last day, on the last Tuesday of any month. Judy's generally there. And we meet at the Sylvia Hotel at 1 o'clock. Our website is the ladies meeting. And we actually have our foundation courses started up, and I'll have the LinkedIn one up shortly as well. Right now I'm doing a 30-day money challenge. So the first part of our foundation courses is actually looking at your personal money. So I'm doing 30 days of Facebook Live, which makes me really uncomfortable. So it's a really good challenge. And filling out a spreadsheet every day on your personal money so that you can, I find often that that reflects into your business life if you haven't got your personal money taken care of. So we invite you out to the ladies meeting. And Judy, thank you very much. And I will see you at the end of the month.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Take care.